So hello sisters, I am Charlene from Sistership Circle and I'm very excited, delighted and honoured to have this opportunity to introduce you and interview one of our very own tribe members, Shannon Krammes. Now Shannon is one of our sisters in the facilitator tribe, and before I invite her to go on and introduce herself, I just want to explain a little bit about what we're doing today and why we're here. So each and every month within the facilitated tribe, we're giving one of our outstanding tribe members the opportunity to step into the spotlight. And for this past month, we really want to acknowledge you, Shannon, for stepping up as a pod leader and for your general leadership and contribution to the tribe. And I really love how you're using your initiative and how encouraging and welcoming you are, especially in the Facebook group. And, you know, I'm really feeling and seeing your presence and participation. And I'm sure many of our facilitated tribe members would agree with that. So I want to thank you and really acknowledge you for that. And I'm going to beam you now and beaming you on behalf of all of our tribe members as well. And now I have the privilege of spending some time getting to know you and finding out what you're up to in terms of your feminine leadership. So I'm going to hand it over to you now, and if you could give us an introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thank you, Charlene. Thank you so much for this. I can't say how much of an honor this is for me. Just being part of this circle, I know we'll talk about that, has just expanded my journey so much. So a little bit about myself. I think I'll just kind of say how I think I got here. About 20 years ago, I was actually in the fitness industry, and I was a personal trainer and a lifestyle weight management consultant. And it was just a perfect environment for me with small children. I could take them with me. We had a small daycare. And I loved helping people achieve their personal goals. It was very fulfilling to me and just really allowed me to be myself, one-on-one and in groups. And then my children got to the age where they were going to school, and I, you know, whether society told me or I told myself, I felt like I had to get a, you know, quote, real job. So I went back to school and I finished my master's program in decision sciences and operations research, and I joined the corporate world. And that's where I've been for the last 15 years, and a very male dominated corporate world, for that matter. For the first probably 5 years I was there in my teams, I was the only female. So there are a couple more females now. So I started to kind of recently, about maybe a year, almost 2 years ago, I felt like I was struggling. I was very, very successful in my job. And I think one of the reasons was, whatever it was, I didn't know at the time, but I think it was my feminine energies that allowed me really to pull these teams together. They're very technically diverse, and people would come to me, leadership would come to me and say, we need Shannon in there. She's got to pull these teams together. She just brings something out in them that they all want to solve a problem together. But somehow in doing that, you know, I just felt like I was losing something, a part of myself. And I think it had to do with, you know, I was really putting on a mask, which this theme will come out in our discussion today, of, you know, being one of the guys. You know, Shannon's one of the guys, different. But it allowed me to be very successful, but I lost something. I lost a part of myself. And I finally went to my husband and I said, this career has supported us wonderfully to where we are today, but there's something toxic in there, and I've got to go on a personal journey and find out what it is and rediscover myself, if you will. So so personally, I have two beautiful children, a 28-year-old daughter who's doing wonderful. I got a 26-year-old son who I'm visiting here in Portland, Oregon now, married for 30 years. So I have a wonderful personal life. I've always said that I've been extremely fortunate. Anyway, so that's a little bit about myself.
Thank you for sharing. It sounds interesting that you were in that male-dominated environment for so long, but how that's kind of brought up a lot for you and perhaps moved you forward on your path as well. So
Absolutely.
can you share with us about how, or what brought you to Sistership Circle?
Okay, so I'll go back to the fact that when I started to really struggle with, where I was going, and I just felt like I was losing a part of myself, I started to get into meditation a lot. That was kind of a way, I'd heard a lot that could help, go inside and really experience yourself more. And that led me to yoga, actually. Sometimes that's the other way around for people, but I started to get into yoga, and actually went into teacher training this last year and just received my certification in that. And during that training, this theme kept coming up, this idea of this mask. And I just kept saying, I felt like I was wearing this mask for so long, in that male dominated environment. I would go in and, even big briefs with hundreds of people, and I would just, like shields up, and I'd put this mask on. And I had this wonderful yoga instructor that I had, Marnie Sklaroff, who looked at me one day and said, this mask thing, this is your yoga. Whatever it is, you need to explore it. And I kept calling it my avatar. And I'm like, I don't know who that person is. And I feel like my own true voice is not there. And so I started doing some research, and I started having sister circles in my home. And I started talking to these women, and I started, um, talking to them about this true voice. And they said the same thing. They felt like they had this mask on. And I did this, I started blogging, and I wrote an article called Finding Our Tribe. And I started it out with that, some quotes like, I just work better with men. And I'm like, have you heard that before? Or I just get along better with men than I do with women. And I'm sure you've heard that one before. And I said, I just feel like we've been indoctrinated with this idea that, women are catty, and you can't build strong relationships with them, and they're always in competition. And so I wrote that blog, and that got me to, I'll look at some of my notes because I don't want to forget some of it. I began researching the female relations, the idea of masculine and feminine, and I started talking to the ladies in my circles about that. And it just kept coming out more and more about the idea of how can we as women support each other so that we can find our true voice, and then to take it out into the world, not just with women, but with the men in our lives, or women in our lives and our children, and to break that paradigm that women can't have strong relationships together. And that's really what brought me to Sistership Circle. I was researching, and I found Tanya, and I read everything she did, all her open heart book and the interviews, and just it kind of exploded my journey, if you will, to take me down a whole new path of this idea of Sistership Circle.
Yeah, wow. So it sounds like you went on this quest of like wanting to discover what does the mask mean, and then it really put you on the path to being surrounded by women and being in sistership, being in circle, and that then led you to Sistership Circle, and it's opened up a whole new circle for you, if you like.
Huge.
Yeah, wow. And tell us, what are you up to in terms of your feminine leadership now?
Okay, so I'm going to reiterate this a couple times too, that my number one focus right now is to work in this environment with these women. I have to keep kind of coming back to it because my masculine is very strong, because that's what I've allowed to dominate my life. And it takes me down this structured business model, and I have to keep coming back. And so just immersing myself in these women that have been on this journey already. So I'm learning from them. Women that are where I am, which are in a discovery, if you will, of each other. And then women who are just coming into this area. So that's my number one thing I'm doing I feel like in my feminine leadership. But other than that, I hold these sister circles at my home, as I mentioned. And during that, I met a lady, one of the ladies in my group that runs a women's shelter. So she's asked me to come and lead some sister circles there. So I'm coordinating that with her, which is something I want to do when I do retire, because I'm still in this very powerful corporate job right now. So I'm kind of just exploring. That's really one area I want to work in, because I can think that if I had such a fortunate, blessed life, and it was hard for me to find my voice. These vulnerable populations who, you know, are constantly in a protect mode may, you know, need that extra help to find their voice. So I'm really excited about that. I also mentioned that I got my yoga certification. So I started working with a yoga studio here in Virginia, the owner, and I'm getting ready to kick off my first 6-month session, July 15th. So, so that's kind of where I am right now with what I'm doing.
Amazing. So it sounds like you're really stepping out there and putting it all out there, and it's all beginning to happen and unfold for you.
Absolutely.
Yay, that's great. And would you be willing to share something vulnerable about yourself as a feminine leader?
Okay, I probably have a lot of those, but let me focus on one. This is a recent one, and it really goes along with the idea of my involvement in Sistership Circle. So as I mentioned, I'm starting this 6-month series. Mm-hmm. And when I first made that business proposal to the yoga studio owner, and she said, that sounds wonderful, let's do it. I said, well, let me offer an introductory course. Let me, you know, bring in as many ladies as they would like, and I'll give them a little, hey, this is what Sister Circle's about. This is what I think it can do for you. And then just give them a smaller experience with what it means to be in a sister circle. So I started doing some research on, you know, how would I structure it and stuff. And I came across the speech that Tanya recently did. I believe it was at the Chopra Center.
Yes.
And it was so beautiful, and I loved it. And I mean, I transcribed the entire speech.
Yeah.
And then, as you know, being a part of the tribe, Tanya shared that with us a couple of days later, and I was like, okay, that would have saved me some time. She's so wonderful. She just shares everything. Anyway, so as I'm preparing for this, I'm actually reading this transcription, and I'm, you know, basically giving the speech again. And something didn't feel right about that to me, because parts of it resonated beautifully with me. It was like, oh, I can take that as my story. But other parts of it, they just weren't my story. I didn't relate to them as I was trying to give the speech. Listening to it's beautiful, but it wasn't my story. So, but I ignored my feminine intuition because I haven't learned to honor that yet. And all the red flags that were popping up, and I could feel the anxiety coming, and I kept practicing it anyway. And then as fortune and the universe does, I had a friend of mine who works in this corporate world with me. So another very corporate masculine, you know, she's like, I want to come to this thing. I think it was more out of curiosity. And so that threw in a little anxiety, because I was like, oh no, now there's somebody there who knows me. And I'm going to be really woo-woo. That's the word we use. And that's not me. Everybody knows me as this, you know, masculine leading. And I just panicked. The whole idea blew up in my face. And I remember breaking down, and I was telling my husband about it. And he was like, just take a deep breath. If you're not comfortable with that story, you have your own story. You know, everything that's brought me to where I am, this idea of wearing this mask, and, you know, use what feels right with you. So I love, like Tanya used the background of feminism. She said, I know this is a loaded word, but just understanding that it's a vehicle that brought women to where we are. So I loved that 3 waves, and I used that. And I said, you know, I recently listened to this beautiful speech, and let me share that with you. But then I built my own story about how I got here, and this mask, and the idea of the mask. And even this was a lesson to me, in the sense that I said, I thought I was wearing my mask because I was in a masculine world and I was hiding my feminine. And what I've realized is we can put our mask on anytime, anywhere. Here I was going to be in this beautiful circle of women, which is what I want to do for the future. And I still put on a mask because I was afraid of being myself. I was embarrassed that I wasn't enough. So that just, again, I think anytime you do stuff like this, you have the opportunity to break a little bit, unfortunately, but it just made me that much stronger. And when I went in there and did that introductory with my own story, it was beautiful. And all of these women were like, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah, wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And I can see how moved you are by that sharing, and how the realization that you've had about the mask, and how it's not just about, you know, the mask of the masculine. It's actually a mask that, when you take off, it's you're there in your vulnerability and your truth, and how scary that can be. And at the same time, how the circles, how being with women can also really allow the permission, and the honoring of that. And I hear that you're in this process of really honoring yourself, and really contacting that deep feminine essence where you allow yourself to open and to be seen in your rawness and vulnerability. And that's
Yes.
wonderful. I'm going to beam you for that. Thank you so much for
And actually, I'll even finish up, Charlene. My friend that came, which I never expected, had this huge breakthrough. I mean, just the tears and the hugs, and I couldn't even see her in that light before. And she just said, "Thank you so much." And she goes, "I never even realized I was wearing a mask."
Oh, wow, that's so
Really
beautiful.
been beautiful.
Yeah, and I love how when we get to do the work on ourselves, it's like we're also opening up for the other women to do the same. And that's exactly what you did. You did this massive up leveling in your vulnerability and your rawness and showing who you are. And it gave permission for that lady, that woman, to also experience the same and have this huge shift and transformation. It's wonderful.
Beautiful.
And what is your vision for your, leadership and where you're going with everything?
Okay, let me see. Get myself back. Okay. This will go back to, again, I have to keep reminding myself that I think the first step in any vision and mission is, as we go forward and plan what I want to do, which is, again, empowering women to find their true voice, to be able to be vulnerable, to make them realize that that actually strengthens us, that it starts with myself. And I have to keep coming back to the vision needs to be there first, to always be open and honest with myself, and not to let that mask slip back up as it just so easily does. And to bring these women together in this new 6-month session that I have coming up, to practice that with myself, to practice that with them, and to help them find their true voice and their purpose. That's really my vision. I always start out all my circles, especially in a new environment where the ladies don't know each other. And I say, "I don't want to know what you do for a living." I said, "I know that's the first question everybody asks I mean, it actually is the first question in groups when people get together." I said, "I don't care what you do. It doesn't define you. I want to know what makes your heart sing. You know, I want to know what just makes your heart sing. And I want to help you find the voice and the piece in you that makes that heart sing more."
Yeah.
I have a poem I wanted to read by Rupi Kaur that I think captures how I feel.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes, and it says, starts out, "I want to apologize to all the women I've ever called pretty before I've called them intelligent or brave. As if something that you're simply born with is the most that you have to be proud of. When we know that our spirits have crushed mountains. From now on, I want to say things like, you're so resilient, or you're so extraordinary in all that you're trying to do to make a better world. And not because I don't think you're pretty, but because I think you're so much more than that." And that's just that. I feel like that captures what I want my vision to be as I move forward in this sharing with my sisters.
That sounds so powerful and beautiful, and I love that. And I wish you all the best with the next 6 months, and I look forward to hearing how that unfolds for you in the facilitator tribe. So please make sure you share with us what's happening and what's going on. Yeah, it
Absolutely.
sounds amazing. Sounds really great. And what would what are the things that you've received from the facilitated tribe or from Sistership Circle? Can you speak a little bit about that? How it supported you?
Absolutely. I could probably speak a really long time on this one. Yeah, I actually was writing down some things because I was thinking this is, something we should share. The first one is just simply this sacred, safe environment to explore. And that's really just allowed me to blossom. I can share anything I feel, and immediately I'm comfortable in that environment. One of the other ones I wanted to share was I was amazed at the diversity of women. I mean, I'm in circles that have women from all over the world, all over the United States, um, the UK, obviously, Australia, Romania, Bulgaria, Canada. I can go on and on. And when you think of the diversity of those experiences and just the cultures and the families they've grown up in, it just expands your horizon. So that's huge for me. Of being exposed to women going through this journey on different levels. Like I said, we have some women who've been down this path. Some of them that maybe have never, I don't want to say never struggled, because I'm sure they have, but they've always been strong in their feminine, and they bring so much, that I want to grow in. So I have that. And then again, like I said, I have women that are on the same level of learning really that I am. So we can share our experiences as we're, working in this new environment of building our sisters and stuff. And then also the level of women just coming in, and I can share my experiences. So that's a huge thing I get being in the tribe. The masculine piece, I would call, which is still very important, and that's the knowledge and the resources of the business model idea. We throw that off the IT, how technology can support what we're doing. So lots of discussion in that area that we have that's been very helpful. Multiple opportunities every month to be involved, not only in the circles of the big group, which we call transmission, and rituals, which is really sharing how to structure a particular theme, and then actually going through the ritual of using that theme. Those are beautiful. And then we have the circle pods, which are the smaller groups, a couple times a month, where I get together and just been, again, exposed to the most amazing things, using drumming, which is something I'm very interested in. So I'm exposed to a woman who uses drums as a healing circles. And so we're combining, her experience with that, my experience with sister circles. So just having that. And then to the 24/7, I'll go on there and, help, I'm getting ready to do this, and I don't know how. And so just having, and it really is 24/7, because once again, these women from all over the world.
Yeah.
So if I'm, been working all day and it's really late, I can get on there and somebody from Australia will pop up and say, hey, good morning.
Yeah. Wow. Oh,
So,
amazing.
and the last thing I wanted to share was, even if you were never interested in leading sister circles, even if I wasn't interested in that, and I may not do that, like I said, I'm still working a full-time job and I'm really exploring right now, just having a place where you can come with, again, women that are on all different levels of their journey. I've never been in a more welcoming, wonderful, safe environment. So that's probably the most important thing that I get from being as part of the tribe.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And as you hear that, I feel my heart expanding more and more and more, and feeling like it's such a privilege to be in this tribe, and for all of the benefits that it has. And you've just spoken so many of them so beautifully. So thank you so much for sharing that. And tell me, what would your words of wisdom be for someone who is stepping into their feminine leadership? As you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's leading circles, but a woman who's really stepping into her feminine essence or feminine leadership. What words of wisdom would you like to share around that?
I guess the most powerful words I could share, the most powerful wisdom I could share is take time to do some self-exploration. Take time to do the hard work of digging in and finding, especially if you have buried that feminine in there. Be gentle with yourself while you're doing that, because I think it can be very heart opening. It can bust through things that you didn't even know were there. As I mentioned, I was thinking I just wore that mask in that one environment. And what I've begun to discover is through journaling and other stuff that I've had that mask on since I was a small child. And some things that went on in my raising before I broke away from that life and built my own life. So do the self-exploration. Make sure that you have, whether it's here in this tribe or whatever tribe it is, make sure you have a safe place to do that, because you deserve and will need support as you find those discoveries about yourself, to allow yourself to then heal. It's like a scar and how it gets that thick skin over it, once it heals. Yeah. But it makes us so much more powerful. That's what I would share is dig deep, be gentle, and surround yourself with women that can support you.
Yeah, love that. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. Okay, and our last question. The interview is about to end. So if someone wants to learn even more about you, how could they do that?
Okay, so I'm still a baby in this world, but I'm growing wings fast. So locally in Virginia, of course, I am doing the sister circles at the Soaring Spirit Yoga Studio. So anybody that happens to be in this area can certainly just Google that and go there, and they can read all about the sessions I will be offering. I actually do some blogging on WordPress. So that's shannonmariekrammes.wordpress.com. And you could read my whole journey from the very beginning, which was very raw. And I started talking about that mask and that. So it was my way of opening myself up and showing people. I had people in the beginning say, "What are you doing?" I felt like they were saying, "Get back in your box."
Yes. Yeah.
And I said, "No, I'm coming out of my box, taking my mask off."
Yay.
So you could read my whole journey there. I'm on Facebook, Shannon Samadhi, which is SHANNONS, Shannon's Samadhi, SAMADHI. So maybe that'll be part of the interview. But you could just search Samadhi, which is the 8th limb of Raja Yoga, if you're familiar with that. So I'm on Facebook there. And you can read more about me on sistershipcircle.com under the facilitators. You can go in there, and I've kind of told a little bit about my story there. And then in the tribe is probably the place right now that if you want to be part of this journey that you're hearing, you could be joined by, I don't even know how many of us there are now, a lot of women that are on this same journey, and they will be telling parts of your story, and we need to hear parts of your story. Yes. That's what makes us whole.
Yes. Yay. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing so openly about yourself, and I've loved interviewing you. It's been so nice to get to know more about you, and I really thank you for your time, and thank you once again for all that you're bringing to this tribe. Lovely to be with you, Shannon. Thank you.